Well, hello there. And welcome back. Hey, Cactus. We are at it again. As always. Already losing my voice, that's not good. We'll see how it goes. Alrighty then, folks. Can you guys actually hear me? And see me? Well, not see me, but what I do. I'm a little bit paranoid of OBS misbehaving. Luckily it doesn't happen all that often, but when it does, it's annoying. Righty-o. So just like last time, which was yesterday, we're working our way through this demo to-do list here. I've been doing like a whole lot of smaller tweaks and fixes, and I'm slowly arriving here at the end of the list, which contains mostly sort of larger bodies of work. So things like fixing up this monorail once and for all. As you can see, it's still untextured. Essentially everything related to it is untextured, which is a little annoying. Will the demo be available for free? Well, most certainly. Most certainly it will be available for free. There will probably be multiple demos of the game. They will all be available for free. Yes. So like I've mentioned, the upcoming demo, which will be released on the 1st of February, will be just a very first version, which is going to be very rough. And so I wouldn't dare ask money for that. Not that I'm going to ask money for the polished demo either. Hey Matt. Oh, PR reviews. Do you actually like... Is that like part of your work? Do you do like pull requests at work? Or are you actually managing some open source library or something? Like I don't think most people actually work with like pull requests. Maybe I'm wrong. Anyway, today we're gonna do a little bit of work on the monorail. I've been putting this off for long enough that I think we're just gonna have to deal with this now. So a bunch of things to do here. We have to have at least 2 people from the team review a PR. Okay, maybe it's just a terminology thing. That it's called PR, or is it like actually an actual pull request rather than just like a submit or commit or whatever? I mean, code reviews are a good idea, obviously, especially if you have a large project. So I don't think they are uncommon, but Okay, yeah, okay. Yes, okay. I see. Probably if like Git is your main way of managing your versions, then PRs are probably like more common. You know, because like the games industry doesn't run on Git. The code for Traction Point is actually in Git. It's something that I started doing just because I kind of wanted to learn more about GitHub. So I migrated the code from SVN to Git. The data is still in SVN. But the games industry doesn't run on Git. Except like some exceptions. I'm sure there are some exceptions. But the games industry runs on Perforce. Almost completely. And so we don't really talk about pull requests. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. I think the first thing I probably want to do here is actually have a look here at this track, because that is actually a quick mesh, so a Blender sync object. All right, and I think it brings basically like a pretty significant part of the level with it. When we do this, I don't think I've opened this up for like a year. The level was significantly less detailed when I did that, so let's see what happens. Hello Mocho, welcome to the stream. Yeah, Blender just opens this up like a champ. Doesn't care that it's a big one. It's really nice. Git doesn't have a large binary files too well, though Git LFS is getting better. Yeah. Yep, that's one reason. That is one reason. And it's probably one of the main reasons, but another reason is just that like Perforce has been around forever, and if you use Perforce, you kind of have to do a little bit of work to make your tools work with it. Since it actually does like file locking and everything. It's very, very significantly different from something like SVN, you know, which was the other widely used thing back in the day. And so if your studio is used to working with Perforce, then it's a pretty significant, you know, piece of work to actually move to Git. I don't know if it's like an issue for studios. I mean, I don't use Perforce for this project and I manage just fine, but of course I am mostly a one-man team. Maybe it would be if I had a bunch of large binary files that I had to merge together or something. I don't know. Yeah, I really like SVN. It's just like super simple. Always found it to be my favorite system if I'm working on like a slightly smaller project. Anyway, so this track here, it's actually constructed with geometry nodes, and it's made up of like a piece of track which is right there. So if we just turn off the surroundings for a bit. Like so. We can see that this is just sort of duplicated across this entire path here. So the first thing that I should really do now, today, here, is sort of adding collisions to this thing, right? Because there just haven't been any collisions at all, and that's a bit of an issue, right? You can just put like a dynamic crate there, and then just drop that and it falls right through. Let's see, artists are afraid of Git. Well, that's not just artists. I assure you, it's not just artists who are afraid of Git. And the distributed nature of it is no benefit for game devs unless it's purely code. Yeah, that is true. And very few things tend to be purely code in game dev. After a while, annoyingly, I'm not saying this is a good thing, annoyingly, everything tends to be this code version together with this data version. And so it's sort of a luxury if you only have to work with code, because then that is like free hands, you can do anything, right? Not even in a one-man project like this. Like if I make a change to the code, I have to like think very carefully. Am I going to break the data now? And am I then going to spend like an hour in a text editor fixing up some JSON files because I broke the data? It's kind of silly, really. Yeah, how are we going to make the collisions for this? How are we gonna make the collisions for this? I don't know. We could make it as just one big mesh. It's a really, really big mesh. Like a physics triangle mesh sort of thing. That would run just like all the way over here. That would work. That's not a problem. It's kind of unwieldy though. But I guess in a way this is already super unwieldy. Another thing is that it would be kind of nice if this wasn't just like one singular piece. So what we could do is we could break this up into meshes in a Blender file, and then we would do collisions per piece. So maybe into like 4 pieces or something. That could be kind of nice. How about that? Maybe that is what I'll do. These guys are already, yeah, monorail support. So we can have a look here in the asset browser and see where that actually is. So blueprint, they are in the refinery. Monorail support. Map refinery / monorail. So it is like a map specific thing, right? Yeah. Map refinery, monorail. And we have the car, we have the support. Yeah, okay. Okay, this will work. Yeah, that's fine. So what we will do here is do a hijack, as I call it, which is we take this guy and we save a copy. And we save it into map refinery, monorail, work, monorail track, like so, and then we actually cancel that edit. Because I'm actually even gonna stop the server so we don't do anything stupid here accidentally. I can shut down Timbre from yesterday here. Okay. We have the problem with what we do, because what I work on at work is essentially a no-code solution we use internally with integrated version control and CI/CD. So we used to have a large XML and JSON data that needs to be work. Otherwise people can get their properties surveyed in the UK. Yeah. Yeah, bespoke data formats. Proprietary data formats. It's all fun and games until something breaks. So this would be, let's see, NURBS path. What? Right, so this thing, I don't even remember how this works anymore, but this basically has, this is the mesh data that this thing has. And then we just have a modifier which turns it into this. So that's pretty nice. That's pretty cool. Let's take the, is that the that's the actual path, right? Yeah. Yeah, that's the path. Okay. Let's call that something like work stuff. Surroundings. Oh, that's a nasty color for the surroundings. Let's make it that. Surroundings object. And then we do the geo node version. Something like that. I don't think we're gonna modify this, but it might be super handy to have it as a geometry node version. So let's save all of this. Now, this file is gonna be like pretty huge. Yeah, you can see it's 92 megs. That is mostly because this surrounding stuff is just individual triangles. We merged it by distance, and it's gonna again get rid of like maybe a couple of million points. 1.6 million points, almost 1.7. And now if we save it, should be, yeah, now it's 55, which is not small, but still significantly smaller. So that's good. Okay, what's the next step then? Well, probably to copy paste that. Call that track, and then we're going to apply this. So we applied it in order, like so. Now we should have a pretty nice looking track here made out of actual geometry. Isn't that nice? And I think the geometric density here is probably pretty good. It's not super high def, but it's not like low poly either. So I think this is probably good. And it should match the original almost perfectly. Yeah. All right. So save that, and we can collapse the, at least make that smaller. I'm gonna reuse it for something else later on. Don't really need the geometry node for anything anymore in this file, probably. So let's split this into pieces. We can split it into 2, or we can maybe split it into 4. So 2 or 4. Which one is it? Might be worth keeping in mind that we're gonna have to texture this guy as well. Not only that, we're actually gonna have to light map this guy. And so we need to have enough texture space for everything, even in the light map. That's something to keep in mind. Let's make it, split it into 4 pieces. I think that makes sense here. So how do we do that then? When it looks this, or when it's this large? Don't actually know. Just split it by eye, maybe? Just go like there. That's you know, the halfway point or something. I don't know. I do not know. Why is my edge, why is my loop selection not working? I can select this and then I can hold Alt and it selects the whole thing. But I can't do it across. Oh. Look at this. Look at this craziness going on. That would be a problem. And that's probably something with it's probably something that has to do with the geometry nodes and how that thing was actually welded. Let's make those sharp. Same thing here. Let's make that sharp. Let's make those sharp. Everything is sharp. Right? Let's just make sure looks the same. I don't remember what it looks like anymore. Yeah, that looks good. Looks the way it's supposed to look. So that's good. Now we should be able. Yeah, now we can just select one of these loops. Okay. Well, that was a silly thing. If that is how we've actually been rendering this thing all along, as like individual sort of phases without having been connected to each other. That's stupid. But okay, that is fixed now, so that's good. So again, how do we actually select like the halfway point here? Might be a way to do that sort of cleanly, but in the absence of cleanliness, let's just select one like that, and that would be like the halfway point for the entire track. And the question is, what the hell do we do with that then? Maybe we need to do it like get rid of that thing, and then we start selecting like this, right? Then we can go until we reach the halfway point, about there. We can duplicate that and we can separate it out. Right. At some point I'm gonna run into, yeah, that was one too many. So that's now we have both of them. One ends there, the other ends there, or starts rather at the same place. The scene you have in Blender, is that just an FBX export of the level's geometry, or do you have a plugin connecting Blender to the engine? If you mean this guy, this thing here, then this is quite literally the output of a system which gives you the geometry of the level within some radius. So It's used for a bunch of different things. For example, when we do the nav mesh baking, the scene needs to be exported into a format that that recast can read, and then it generates the nav mesh on top of that. And I think that was the original use of this. That was the original purpose of this system, was to be able to generate nav meshes. This was maybe 5-6 years ago or something. Actually, probably more than that. And then with time, I started doing other things with it as well. And then I just used it for this Blender sync thingy. So it is. Yeah, I guess there is like this plugin here, which you can use to hook it into Blender. But what it is in reality is an OBJ file, which is exported from the scene. OBJ exporter is right here. It's the same code. It's just wrapped up in a component that you can place somewhere. So if you place an OBJ exporter there, and then we make, let's see, within bounds, right? You can make it larger, 50. I don't know if this is gonna work. I haven't run this in a while, but let's see. Flip x-axis, include terrains, include meshes, include hidden objects, right? So if you have hidden objects in the editor, they will appear. Now press export. I can just push this to the exp test to the desktop. It exports the thing as an OBJ file, and if we go have a look at that, where is it? What? Is it not here? Yeah, there we go. Look at that piece of thing for your viewing pleasure. And it just includes everything it possibly can. So that means that you get all of these dynamic objects and everything with it. And it is just a list of triangles. That is why those things aren't connected normally when you bring it into Blender, because you have to like connect them and merge by distance by hand. In fact, before I fixed the bug, even this gizmo, this thing here, was included in in the export, because the gizmo is literally just a mesh in the world which is scaled along with the camera so that it remains the same size. So if we now did this before I fixed that bug, you would get like an enormous gizmo thing there included in the export. And then I at some point I just like literally went in and excluded that, because having that there is kind of annoying. So it is an OBJ export of a piece of the level, which is not stored anywhere except in a temporary file, and that way if you do like a if you click edit in Blender here and you include the surroundings, you'll always get the most up-to-date version of the level. So you can, you know, add a mesh or change the terrain or something, and then click edit in Blender again. You always get the most up-to-date version here, because it literally runs through all the objects in there and exports them to OBJ. And that is why everything here is triangles. If you look at this house here, for example, this building, everything is triangles, right? This is not how I have modeled this house. I've used mostly quads, because quads is what Blender wants you to work with. But when they reach the game engine, they are no longer quads, because the game engine doesn't know what to do with quads. So it comes from the Blender file, gets exported as an FBX, which is read by Asimp and converted into Basis's own mesh format. And then out of that we get this, and here you can see some truly horrible triangles. Look at that guy. That's horrendous. Yeah. Makes sense, I guess. Well, yeah, it kind of is. I don't exactly know what other way I would just get everything in the scene dumped into a format like this. So it's not the most easiest to actually, you know, work with in here. You can really only use it as a sort of reference. You shouldn't really try to necessarily modify this stuff here. Instead, only modify the actual Blender Sync target. Alright, so we have this thing in 2 pieces now. That's good. So now we just need to split it 2 times more. Quick pee break, and then I'll be back, and then we'll do just that. Alright, we are back. So I just started thinking, like, how do I actually, where do I put the pivots for these pieces? As I separate them. I guess that remains to be seen. I'm gonna have to figure something out. Okay, so, what is this? This is track number 2. And this would be track number nothing. Let's call that track number 0. And then this would be track number 2. Yes, so we have one here in between, which is going to be split again at the center. Is that maybe half of the track? Probably. Do like one more. That's probably good. And then we'll separate that out. Oh, can I just... Oh, okay. That's significantly easier than what I did previously. Hey, no. No, it's not. Okay. So, okay. So if you just separate... I'm confused now. Oh no, actually it did exactly what I wanted it to. Yeah, okay. You don't have to, like, select, separate, and then cut away the old pieces. You can just select and separate, and it will automatically cut out the old pieces. That's good. Okay, so we have track 0, 1, 2, and then the last piece will be number 3. Couple more. Maybe like that. Then we'll separate that out, and that will be number 3. Like so. Beautiful. Okay, and now, of course, the issue here is that the pivot is right here. It's in the center of the scene. And so what we can do is basically export them as they are and then just place them all in the same place. I wonder if that would make sense to do. Also, I wonder if it would make sense to actually just export this mesh as a tri-mesh with collisions and everything. Use that as the collision mesh. Or do we need to make like a simpler, more low poly version of it for the collisions? Not sure. Not sure what is the best course of action here. Like, this thing should be reasonably simple to unwrap, maybe. It's kind of like these long strips of things. On the other hand, they're sort of bent, which can lead to confusing things. Well, that remains to be seen. Let's put on cavity rendering here, make it a little easier to see what's what. Anyway, what we can do now is basically take one of these guys and do a sort of a So we need to export these all as individual files. Yeah, let's export them with their current position as a first version, and then we can, if that turns out to be a problem later, then we can change that. So I'm just going to do monorail track 0, monorail track 1, 2, and 3. Like that. And then we need to put together an object, and I'm just going to make a single object here with all of those, right? Am I not? It's a good question actually, because if I do that, then I can't use these as collision meshes, because an object can only really have a single collision mesh unless I write a custom component for it, in which case it can have whatever it wants to. Questions. The other option is to make all of them individual objects. Yeah, I think I'm gonna make them each make sort of like a separate collision mesh for each of these. Or maybe I'll make a separate collision mesh, but keep just one of them. Like there's a point to this rambling that I have going on here. If I make it just one object, then we can just quite simply place it in the same position that the current version is, and everything will match up. That's easy. The idea of splitting them into 4 is, first of all, so that we can cull them a little more efficiently than what we currently do. And also to be able to use texture space a little more efficiently than we currently do. Or than we currently can do. This thing is of course not textured, but we can't really use texture space very efficiently with this, I bet. Something like that. Not exactly sure. But okay, let's make an object. First of all, we'll call this refinery monorail track. And let's drag it right up next to the other ones. You can rubber duck to chat. What does that mean? What do you mean? I don't know, maybe I'm just stupid, but I don't know what that means. Mesh 0. A mesh 0 would now be track 0. Right. So take basically that guy, put it there. And let's block out. I don't know, brick. Let's go with brick. Blocks nav mesh. Yes, it does. Render thumbnail. That's not really something we need to do. It is not dynamic. If it is not dynamic and we have add to BVH set to auto, then it is added to the BVH. GI type should be light mapped if it's not dynamic. Show advanced settings, I don't think we need to mess with that. This add to BVH is a new thing, by the way. Something that I added over Christmas, basically. Or right before Christmas. The static meshes are now added to a BVH. Or a bounding volume hierarchy, which should make it, at least in theory, more efficient to cull them away. Explaining though what you're doing to make it clearer in your head, that is. What? What? I don't know. Do you want me to do that, or are you commenting that I am doing that, or like what? I'm sorry, I'm being slow today, clearly. I'm just being stupid. Let's make that green. I'm making these different colors so that I can see clearly where the borders are. That would be mesh 2. And that would be monorail track number 2. It's a debugging technique. Okay. Explaining to the rubber duck. I've heard of that. Yes, I've heard of that. Yes, it is yes, I have experience with this stuff actually. It's the phenomenon when you're sitting at work and you're looking at something and going like, why is this not working? And then no, mesh rotator. Come on, get away. You're sitting at work and you're trying to figure out why something isn't working. And then at some point you ask one of your coworkers, like, hey, come take a look at this. And then you start explaining to them what it is you're doing and why it doesn't work. Or that it doesn't work. Right? And then at some point, like halfway through your explanation, you just realize what the problem is. Maybe your coworker hasn't even begun to understand what you're doing or what you're trying to do. But you just realize it yourself because you're explaining it to someone, and then that forces you to sort of think through the whole thing. Good morning, Aku. Explaining the problem to something and in doing so make the solution clear. Yes, exactly. Yes. It's a magical thing. It's a magical thing. Right. Let's reload this guy. Nah, probably not. Good morning, William. What happened to my editor? I was trying to reload it, but it just died on me. Did I actually shut it down? Maybe I did. Let's reload it by hand then. The objective for today is the same as yesterday. Just tick things off this list. And currently I am wonder if this thing is actually even listed here. I just happen to know that it needs to be done. Mother vehicle, monorail. Oh, there we go. The monorail itself. We're doing this modeling and texturing the monorail itself. So that's like basically the track. The track is what I could have written there. What's this thing? Which so far has just been made out of one big huge mesh, which is not really texturable. Doesn't actually even have collisions. Yeah, this entire monorail is kind of like untextured. We have this car, which is untextured. We have the track, which is untextured, and we have these two stations, which are untextured. And even a house here, which is untextured. Won't necessarily have time to do everything for the demo, because I only have 1 week left. But we'll see what I have time to do. Okay, so now we should have the, actually, if I do this and I come to track and I make that the active parent, we should have a monorail track here. It's still rendering. I unticked render thumbnail for one of those, but it's still rendering the other ones. That's maybe not exactly what we want to do. Let's just untick everything. And so, if we place one of these guys here in the level, it's not gonna match, obviously. We should now have nice different colored things in the level. But if we select that guy and we copy its transform, paste it onto this. Now they should be sitting on top of each other. We can take the quick mesh one, put the movement snap to something like 50, and then just move it underground. Bloop. So now it's sitting under here. Yeah, whenever I do like a whole lot of modeling and stuff, there's just like a whole graveyard of stuff under the level, because I tend to move my quick meshes over there until I know I no longer need them. So let's keep it there until we know for certain that we're not gonna need that anymore. And now we can fly along this guy and see that it actually matches the way we're expecting it to. And I think it looks pretty good. In particular, these sort of seams here should be inspected to make sure we don't have any holes or anything. Now that we have it in separate pieces, they should be more manageable when it comes to texturing. Still have the problem of the collision though. And I wonder if I'm just not gonna basically do like a slightly lower poly version of this and use it as a collision mesh. I think that's what I'm gonna do. It's kind of interesting here, like the ambient light for these materials are basically exactly the same, right? But the diffuse light is completely different. So if I take a spotlight here, for example, put a spotlight over there, and we use it to shine on it. You can sort of shine on the place where there is some difference, but it kind of goes away almost completely in the ambient light. That's interesting. It is what it is. Okay. Sip of water and then we'll ponder the next move. So, let's shut that down. This is save worthy. I'm even gonna basically make a copy of this if I happen to just mess it up. Actually, I can just commit this stuff at this point. We have a good thing going. Commit that to SVN so we don't break it, and it's gonna take a little while because the Blender file is so big. Map refinery, monorail, work, 55 megs. There we go. Times 2, of course, because there's the backup file or whatever that is, blend 1. Okay, so I think I'm gonna want to probably do the collisions now, just to make sure that I can do that, right? And now that we've actually split this, maybe what I'll do is put it back together. In fact, I don't need to do that. I can just do the GeoNode version and duplicate that one more time and leave it there. And let's call that the collisions. Or maybe track collisions. How about that? And then we'll just hide the other ones for now. So again, we have one which is made out of geometry nodes. So let's apply these things again in order. And I need to combine these by distance. And then auto smooth, I guess, except of course it doesn't really matter with the collision mesh that whether or not you have your normals or not done correctly. So let's start by just taking out every other of these edge loops here. Every other one. Maybe there's a more handy way to do that, but let's just do it by hand for now. It's not that long anyway. And then we can use that for collisions, but might still be, first of all, might still be unnecessarily high density. And second, it might be that we actually want collisions to be slightly different than the actual visuals, but we'll come to that one. We'll get to that when we come to it. Or we'll deal with that when we come to it. Oh. So easy to hit that longitudinal edge there. You only want the lateral ones. Right. Up. Again. Like so. Let's put on some stats here to see. Vertice is 798. If we have the whole track, we have 1600. Yeah, got rid of half. That might be fine. It's definitely like technically doable with collision mesh. Collision meshes aren't free though from like a performance standpoint. So if we can decimate this somehow even more, that would be nice. But it probably makes sense to have the collisions match pretty well there in the beginning and the end, because that is kind of where the player might be expected to like drive on that and like misbehave generally. So I think it makes sense to keep it kind of accurate around that place. Here we have a somewhat straight piece. What is that? That's there, okay. Now we can almost certainly like remove some of these. Just make those a bit longer there. Let's do that. Do the same thing there. Maybe same thing there. And there as well. Starting to turn here. But I think that probably makes sense to remove as well. And of course the collisions don't need to match exactly. That's like they almost never do in this game. Either by sort of accident or just deliberately. They just don't need to match. In fact, I'm starting to second guess this approach here. Should I just like consistently like remove even more of these guys? What if I just take... Let's, like I said, let's keep like the first maybe 4 as they are, and then start to remove even more of these things. See what that looks like. Like if we turn on the rest of the track. Now we don't actually need that track, we can just turn on that piece. Yeah, I think that will do just fine. That will do just fine. Then again, I think we'll keep the last one of those. Could maybe even keep this thing here because it's kind of close to the ground. Let's keep all of those, and then at that point we start doing the lower density version. That looks good. Okay, so what do we have now then? 490. That's absolutely great. That is absolutely reasonable for this kind of thing. So let's save that, and I'm gonna do just a smart UV project here. Let's just, for shits and giggles, see what it came up with. I don't know what to think about that. Looks like some sort of leaf, or like fishbone sort of thing. Mostly just so that Asimp doesn't get annoyed with me if it doesn't have any sort of UVs to process, because Asimp doesn't currently know if we're actually going to be using a mesh as a collision mesh or as a visual mesh. Maybe that information could be handed to it, but whatever. Okay, so monorail track collisions, right? Export that out. Come on. And then we need to basically do this. Track. And track collisions, we need to enable physics data for that. And now we can go back to refinery. Maybe even turn on a preview here. It might be too big to actually show us as show us a preview. Yeah, you can see that it like kind of breaks because the drawing distance here in the preview isn't that large. But okay, we should be able to see what we have. So currently we have a box there in the middle. That just comes from the fact that this uses a static body. Transform components into tri-mesh, and we'll do track. And it hasn't actually loaded in there, but we can just copy the path from here. Default ground. If someone wants to drive on top of the thing, then it needs to be default ground. Or it doesn't need to be default ground, but it can't be default because you can't drive on default. And so that's probably good. The only thing I'm thinking of here now is the fact that, like, the collision mesh is sort of like higher up now than the track. Is the collision mesh going to poke through the whatchamacallit? Is it gonna poke through the floor of the car? And that might be something that we want to sort of look at. So what we could do here instead is this. Just bring this only on the collisions, only on the collision mesh. We just bring this down a little bit. not necessarily that much. Just a little bit. Let's not do that yet. Let's see if it actually is a problem. Yeah, I'm gonna unload that. Cool. So the quick mesh is still down there. That guy is still there. That looks good. So let's export this guy and see what it looks like in the game. I think we're just gonna be loading straight into the level. I'm not gonna do the campaign here at all. So that would be refinery block out, like so. And here is our wonderful multicolored track. Let's turn on the physics drawing. And when we can see the thing basically looking exactly how we want it to look. Yeah. Yeah, that's good. Okay. So let's do something like this now. Let's yeah, that's gonna be an issue. That thing is gonna be an issue for sure. So if we put a power cell there, and another power cell there, and a third one there. And then we start the monorail. Can I start the monorail somehow? I can't. Oh, damn. Isn't that stupid? Okay, well I'm just gonna have to drive in there then. That shouldn't be a problem. So what I'm thinking is going to happen is that the collision mesh is going to poke through the floor, and these power cells aren't going to be, you know, they aren't going to be standing in their places. They're going to be moved around. Let's see if that happens. My theory. Maybe it doesn't happen. Okay. Yeah, it doesn't actually happen. Okay, that's good. I think I'm still gonna like lower it just a smidge anyway. Just to be on the safe side. Just a smidge. Right, so now I can actually collide with this thing, and I can no longer drive under it. That's good. This is one of those places that are going to be just like a pain to get out of. But can't necessarily be helped. Like if you drive into this pit here now, and then the monorail comes and hits you, I don't even know what will happen. So I'm like, I'm stuck. Then use the unstuckifier to get out of there. Just like always. Whoop. There we go. Go back. Turn the volume off. And even if you go further, if you go like to the other side of it, like that, like now you're in big trouble. So how is the unstuckifier gonna fix that for you? Well, it basically fixes it. You just might need to have a couple of iterations of unstuckifier-ness. Let's call the monorail back here, and let's see what happens if I go and stand there, and it will basically run into me. I bet my car is probably gonna... I don't know what's gonna happen. It's gonna launch it somehow. Like here. Can't really stand there though. Oh no, the train is coming. Whatever will we do, and whatever will happen? Yeah, it just sort of nudges it away. and now, of course, the unstuckifier is probably gonna try to get back there. It's just like, oh, I can't get there. If the player gets stuck, you can give them a respawn point to get unstuck. Yeah, I might have to do that. Matt says there's a system to fully respawn the car on a nearby road, I think. No. What? What? Who told you this? I have certainly not implemented anything like that. But we implemented the unstuckifier system on a stream, so it's a thing like you can get stuck kind of easily in this game actually. Let's see, am I stuck now? I probably am not. I drove a little too fast, but you can get stuck sort of like hanging over the edge like this with your front wheels in the air. Well, now I'm being too careful. Apparently. I'm being too careful. Like this. Right? Now you're stuck. You can't drive forward. You can't drive backward. So what do? Well, you hold down the D-pad down or the U key on the keyboard and it will just literally pull you back the way you came. Like this. Which can lead to some strange happenings. In certain cases, if you drive down like a cliff, it will try to, unsuccessfully most of the time, sort of bring you back up. So if we do this, we drive down the cliff here. Well, first of all, we got stuck, so we're gonna do. Yeah, and that's what happens when you have a game based on almost entirely on physics. Let's drive a bit faster over the cliff, like this, right? Now if you try to get, I mean, you can activate this at any point. You don't have to literally be stuck. Right? It brought us there. It tries to just like push you in the direction you came from. But now we are in a place where, you know, we were falling, so we're literally levitating up there. I just have a timeout, so you can't do that. You know, you can't do it for very long. And I don't remember exactly how far back the history goes, but it actually it records where you were for a pretty long time. And yeah, apart from silly things like that, that system actually gets you out of most places pretty nicely. There might have to be some sort of respawn thing though, yes. However, that is not currently in the game, nor is it planned for the demo. And you can see this unstuckified text is just like a temporary placeholder text. Here is one place in the game where, or in the level, which is kind of tricky if you get stuck. Like you can get stuck like this, and then you're like, what do I do? How do I get unstuck? And I'm just trying to get out of here now, but I can't. And then you can use the unstuckifier. Sometimes you can manage to get back up. Other times you just get wiggled a little bit so that you can get unstuck in other ways then later on. Yeah, and this 5 seconds that this timeout is currently set to, it might have to be longer. But that means that you can literally levitate back up some of these edges. you can sort of almost go there every time, and then you run out of steam. Hey, look at that! Managed to get there. Okay, so we've sort of rewound back in time. We've rewound back in time, and now we can rewind back in time even more. There we go. So car front wheel drive, not 4. No, it's 4x4. It's 4x4. It is 4x4 with a limited slip differential. So what happened there, most likely, is that there wasn't any grip with the wheel because it was kind of it sort of looked like it was hitting the ground. But with any sort of realistic differential, if you have one wheel in the air, then that wheel has literally no traction, except maybe like some minuscule friction between the different parts and, you know, the air friction and things like that. And the limited slip differential will try to apply torque to all the wheels that actually have traction. That's how the limited slip system works. But since that one wheel has like no resistance at all, even with the very, very small amount of traction that it gets, it will start spinning typically much faster than the wheels that have the traction. And so it looks like, oh, my one wheel there is getting all of the power from the engine, but that's not actually how a differential works. Like in real life, if you drive your car into a ditch so that one of the wheels are on the ground and the other wheel is in the air, it sort of looks like the wheel that is in the air is the only thing that is spinning, but that's not how it works. That's just what it looks like. And this game uses the same system. It is particularly visible with the mother vehicle, which doesn't have the limited slip functionality, and that is quite simply because physics doesn't support it for the N-wheel vehicles. With Physics 4 I had something called torque vectoring implemented, but with Physics 4 I used a custom fork of it, and I just haven't done that with Physics 5 yet. I haven't implemented torque vectoring, so the mother vehicle seems to manage quite nicely without it. Speaking of the mother vehicle, let's put it into the thing, and let's do this. So cargo crane. Now if you do this, you're gonna get in trouble if you drive under that monorail. And since I've never had any collisions with the monorail track previously, stupid scout gets in the way. Now we're gonna get stuck. Way! Oh, physics are resolving each other. That Scout isn't making life easier. Yeah, some of these things just look like, or make it look like this mother vehicle was weighing like 1 kilogram, made out of like some sort of styrofoam or anything. Ooh. That's just how it is. Can't be helped. Antenna. Oh, right. We talked about the antenna in a previous stream. It's basically made up of segments. Scout. So you can see here, go have a look, that it's made up of segments. There's just like all sorts of visualizations going on. Basically, what you want to look at is this this capsule thing here. Oh man, that's fast. Let's try to make the camera slower. There we go. So we have these red capsules here, and you can see they get sort of thinner towards the top. They are the physics bodies that the antenna is made up of, and this top one is really thin. And then, you know, you can see actually that the physics antenna is quite wiggly. I've toned down the visual wiggliness a little bit. There's just a parameter that you can make it so that, like, between fully wiggliness and no wiggliness at all, how much do you want the visuals to wiggle? I've actually toned it down. So that's why they don't actually really match up. Not to mention that the physics are just, like, jerking around because they're not interpolated. But then what you do is you take the position of those segments and you create a Bezier curve which runs through all of the positions, and then you get a Bezier curve which is nice and smooth and doesn't have any like gaps or anything like that. And then you create a mesh which follows that Bezier curve. Right? That's how it works. And that is how the cable also works with the crane. What do I think of DLSS and frame gen? I don't really have an opinion. What do you think of them? Like if you make the cable longer, you can see the same thing here. It's just made up of a bunch of these sort of sausages put together one after another. And so if we mess with the crane here, we just get the cable which is nice and smooth, but it is driven by those sausages. And sometimes, if you're unlucky, you can get like an object that's stuck between two of those sausages, and then it looks like the cable has like an object that's going right through it, or the cable goes right through the object, and that can look kind of strange. And then you wiggle it a little bit, and then it usually comes off, but not always, as we've seen in some previous streams. All right. I like DLSS, but I'm not sure about frame gen. yeah, I don't know. I'm not very familiar with those things, to be honest. It is my understanding that DLSS can give you a pretty significant frame rate boost with virtually no dip in quality, which sounds like a good deal to me, but I'm not familiar. I don't think I really have the hardware to do that, right? You need a pretty beefy GPU, I think, to run frame generation. Isn't that how it works? That's how I've understood it. So I don't necessarily have the hardware to do that. Okay, let's turn off the collision meshes here, and so we can see actually from the nav mesh. Nav mesh number 0, that's the one that's used for the smaller vehicles. You can see that there is nav mesh under this monorail here. This is the one that's used for the larger vehicles. And now we actually have a reason for having this gap here, because this vehicle can't physically fit under this anymore. So it needs to actually come down here, where you can see that there is nav mesh. Like here we can drive, and there is nav mesh there, so that's good. So that works. But I'm always a little concerned about doing what I just did, where I have like an object hasn't had collisions, and then I add collisions. Well, that bridge there has collisions, right? Yeah. So I haven't been able to drive there for a very long time. Let's go the other way. And here is something that I probably won't be fixing for the demo. You can just drive through this power line here. I don't exactly know what to do about that. Like it doesn't necessarily make sense to have it be a hard collision blocker. You're not really supposed to drive here with the mother vehicle, but you can if you want to, as you can see. And then again, we now have collisions here. So yeah, I think this will probably kind of work. This will probably kind of work. Man, I really need to put in some particle effects for this mother vehicle. Doesn't have any effects of any kind. We could have the power lines raised a bit. Yeah, I could. Actually, let's drive back there and just have a look-see. I think these power pylons, or whatever I call those aren't gonna be tall enough for that currently. It was sort of a half-baked idea that I would use those to sort of signal to the player or whatever that they shouldn't drive there. But of course they don't really block anything currently. I don't know. I kind of like this, that they're not that tall. But at the same time, if someone wants to, You can also just drive down here. They can, as they say, not give an F and just drive down here. Let's go like, let's go, boys. So it's pretty good actually that we're not blocking them from doing, like if they then want to go back, they should be able to do that. I don't know. We have so many of these power lines here. The power lines are there for a reason, by the way. They're supposed to help the player find the power station. Soft body. Yeah, soft body power lines. Yeah, I mean, we already have the cable, simulated cable thing there. I don't know, I have to think about that a little bit. It's probably not going to be changed for the demo anyway. But yeah, now at least we have collisions here, that's great. So the next thing would then be to figure out the material and texturing for these things. What happens if I do this now? If I come here and then I start like trying to poke this. Pokey, pokey. Ah! Oh no. Rolling down the hill. Let's go there under the road where there's more flat. Yeah, spin tires and or the mud runner, snow runner series, they have all kinds of cool simulations going, like the fuel inside the fuel tank simulated, or if you have like some sort of liquid tank, you know, delivery, then it sort of sloshes around inside of the trailer and all of that. That's cool. Broop. Broop. Right, so you can do something like this, and it will kind of freak out if you keep doing that. Physics 5 is just like wonderfully stable in the sense that it's not gonna give us like a nance immediately and then just crash the game, which was much worse in Physics 4. The new TGS solver is just super stable with this sort of thing. And here we're just sort of like, we're just forcing the thing through there. And then like there's nothing any of the joints can do, because it's just like, no, I'm going there. Because the gameplay code says so. So the physics engine can't really solve it cleanly. What it can do is try to solve it uncleanly. And I guess that's what we're seeing. Like the suspension takes a little bit of a, you know, does whatever it can in the beginning, but then it goes like flips out. Well, that's cool. That's all I can really kind of ask for in the current state. This is a little silly, but well, it is what it is. Yeah, like I'm a little afraid of comparing this too much to games like Mud Runner, because while those games obviously have several gameplay features that this game has, they are pretty much like simulations in a sense, like light simulations. This is not a simulation, not like in any sense of the word. It's not trying to be a simulation, doesn't want to be a simulation. So I'm sort of trying to manage people's expectations here that we are in fact not making a simulation here. But since I'm not really afraid of some physics jank somewhere, means that I can do things like, you know, I can do things that other games wouldn't necessarily want to do, because they kind of need to work without, they kind of need to handle certain situations without jank. And I'm just like, well, if it's janky, then it's janky. As long as the core mechanics work in a non-janky way. If someone really tries hard to do something stupid and see what happens, then they should expect jank. So a video where boats mast got caught on a lowering bridge, although their mast didn't last long. Yeah, I can imagine that. Yeah, things like that. That clearly wasn't very physical. Now this is about as fast as this vehicle goes, 65 kilometers per hour. And what if we now hit this? Whee! It just gets stuck. Yeah, here's the same thing that we saw earlier with the differentials. We have one wheel which is in the air. We have the other wheels that are more or less in contact with the ground. You can see this second wheel here is spinning faster than those rear wheels, while the front wheel is almost completely in the air. I mean, it doesn't look like it is visually, but it has the least grip anyway. And the differential used here now gives equal torque to all wheels. An equal torque means that the wheel that has the least grip is going to start spinning faster than the other ones, right? It doesn't mean that there's like more torque going to the wheel that is spinning fast. It just means that it has less grip, so with the same amount of torque, it will start spinning faster. Alright, and as we discussed previously, with the Scout, we have a slightly more advanced differential, the limited slip one, which tries to kind of balance it out, so the wheels that don't have any grip on the underlying material gets less. But still, it doesn't mean that the wheel wouldn't spin faster than the ones that actually have grip necessarily. Discord Sonic ramp up in members. Yeah, we've had a few. Oh, Marcus M has joined. Yeah, I try to just greet everyone. Like, still at this level. Probably can't do it forever if we actually gain a whole bunch of members. I can't do that forever. But for a time still, I try to greet everyone individually, rather than just using the clicky buttons and a cute little animal waves at you. Which feels kind of unpersonal. Okay then. Well, this kind of works. That's good. That's good. So the next thing would be then to start looking at the texturing, probably actually unwrapping one of these pieces at a time and figuring out how we can actually use the texture space like somewhat efficiently. That's gonna be an interesting challenge in itself. And then just, you know, texturing them. I'm not gonna put like a whole lot of time into texturing this. It's basically just gonna be like a concrete track. We can paint some details on it later, but if you actually do that in reality, you break something, maybe you can add breaking of the arm if the player tries to force these things. In these kinds of situations, I tend to ask myself, is that going to make the game better or not? That is the interesting question here. I think for most players, having the crane arm break because of some force limit set on it, which can be done, by the way. There's actually even a feature in physics for that. Joint breakage, and it's actually even exposed in my engine to SIG, so I could just set a flag and have it break, which is something that we tried in a previous stream. But in the case of the crane arm, I don't think any player is ever gonna find it fun with the crane arm breaks. Right? They're just gonna be like, oh, I was just, you know, I was trying out a new plan for solving this one puzzle here, and I lifted something that just happened to be a little too heavy, and then the crane arm comes apart, and you're like, oh no, my beautiful plan, and now I'm gonna have to, you know, do some things all over again. Then they're just gonna stop playing. It doesn't add any fun to the game if the crane arm breaks, unless the whole sort of idea is that, hey, can you do this without the crane arm breaking? But then you're gonna have to add systems around that. Okay, what happens if the crane arm breaks? Do you have some place where you drive your vehicle and then it sort of fixes it up for you? Kind of like a pay and spray in GTA or something. So it's, yeah, I don't think it would make this game a lot better at all if the crane arm broke. But it might be an interesting technical thing, yes. It's good to let the player experiment. Yes, that is sort of like the core loop of this game, at least of this demo mission. Is like driving around and going like, can I lift the small vehicle up there and using that, you know, get into that area, and using that then allow the big vehicle to drive there and there, and do that sort of thing. So if that comes with a risk of your equipment breaking, in addition to all of the physics jank, then I think that makes for a worse experience for everyone, including me, by the way. Alright, quick phone call. All right. Let's see. Would be kind of fun if you could knock down some of the smaller trees. Yeah. Yeah, that would be fun. I agree. Yeah, just yesterday we talked about the trees in Crisis 1, and the fact that you can cut down some of those trees. That would be pretty cool. Yeah. That's an interesting thing to think about. Like from the top of my head, like, you know, there could be, oh, that's actually a collection of trees. That's see, this is the problem. Things aren't always what they seem. That's a singular tree. So, you know, if you just cut it, let it fall like this. That could be kind of interesting, and it wouldn't necessarily be all that much work to have this trunk here be replaced with like a stump. Spruce stump. It's not, it doesn't exactly match that. And you can see the color is different, but that's probably because of the light mapping. Yeah, turn off the light maps, they look a little more similar. But yeah, you can sort of like imagine, okay, maybe there's a stump here, like this, and then, which is hidden, of course, it's not visible while the tree is standing. And then if you cut it, it will sort of fall down like this, and then you spawn essentially like a stump there, and have a slightly better version of this trunk, so that you can't see the underside there, or you actually can see the underside. Right, that could be done. That's not super tricky. It's not a work. Yeah, it's not super tricky. But then it's like, okay, so now this thing is a dynamic object, and it has these branches. Like one way is just like not to care about those branches and just let them penetrate the ground like this. And you can like mess around with this guy and just lift it with the crane and all of that. That would be one way, but it might just lead to some reasonably weird looking situations. And it's not really like, yeah, it's a cool detail if you can do that. So now will those logs roll down hills? They probably would, yeah, if they are dynamic objects, right? If we have the dynamic smokestack. I think that is probably like the closest thing we have to a dynamic log right now. Right, so if you take this guy and just let it roll, it rolls down the hill just fine. That's not really a problem. The thing rolls if it is dynamic. But will it look good as it rolls? I don't know, probably not. I think what Crysis does is that they have some sort of like semi-soft kind of geometry around the branches, which makes it so that it doesn't completely ignore those things, and even like the physics might be a little sort of crooked, like this thing here, for example, is made up of you can see these two bodies here, which means that it can kind of kind of follow this shape. It's not like a straight pipe like this. Nah. I don't know. It's worth keeping in mind, maybe. But that would be for later, of course, if it was to happen. Okay, I think I have a little more than half an hour, and then I need to go make some food. So maybe we should try doing at least a little bit of that unwrapping to get continued with those track pieces. How about that? Let's take this first piece here. I think like I'm not gonna do any modeling on this now, and I'm not gonna model any lot of sort of like cracks or you know, damage or anything on this track. I kind of just don't have time for that. So let's not do that. Let's just take it and unwrap it. And how in the name of bejesus do I unwrap this thing? Is it like, do I do this and then mark that as a seam? And that is probably also a seam. And then that's a seam. Like how much distortion will this give me? Probably quite a lot. That's my guess. Let's just unwrap that and let's see. Stretched. It's difficult to see there without actually looking at the UVs. Yeah, I don't know. Is that bad? Is that bad, or is it actually surprisingly alright? It's kind of surprisingly alright. That's cool. But of course it's not really using the UV space efficiently here because we're still only using like I don't know, like an eighth of the entire space. We could cut them in two. That might be a pretty good idea. And then we could put several of them together into the same UV space. And then maybe that way, if we make it just like a 4K map or something, that might be a pretty good idea. So we cut this like straight across here, make that a seam, and then we unwrap that. Let's just keep this split going here. Yeah, now we can see that we're already using the UV space more efficiently. And UV Backmaster can probably do some wonders to this as well. So let's do the same with this other track piece. How did I cut it? I cut it there in the inner sort of corners here, and then like that. Yeah, okay. So seam, and then I think it was seam there and there, and then there and there. No tiling. No tiling in the way I do UV unwrapping, because I use the same UV space currently for light maps. So I can have no tiling, I can have no overlaps, I can have no repetition. And I particularly want to avoid, as much as possible, seams over like large flat surfaces. And here I am, just as I'm saying it, I make one such seam here. But I mean, I can't completely avoid them because there's going to be between these mesh pieces. There's going to be seams anyway. But yeah, I have some quite particular requirements for how I unwrap these things. Yeah, you can see that one of these areas have like one more segment. I think it's this first one probably. Okay, and that's not bad actually. What if we run this through UV Packmaster? Let's funsies. Let's select both of these guys and add a checker texture. It's gonna look really bad. That's fine. And then we take all of them. Let's darken the image. Run them through UV Packmaster. Set the margin to, I don't know, maybe 0.8. Heuristic search. And then we'll see what happens. What can we reach? We're like, not even half is used. So you can see that it's quite terrible usage of UV space, but I'm still gonna do the other half of this. Yeah, it's not even getting to 0.5. This is completely terrible space use. Yeah, and it's just not finding anything more. That's fine, we have to experiment a little bit. It's fine. Right, so that would be one seam. That would be another seam. Mark seam. And then seam, 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 and seam. Those are all the longitudinal seams. And then we need the one lateral seam, which goes there. And then we just do this, the last one, and then we see what happens if we just stuck all of them together into the same UV space. Let Packmaster do its thing for a little bit. Yeah, that's the last one, okay. So on the bottom side we have the outer edges, and on the top side we have the inner edges. Seam, seam, no, like so, and like so. And then let's do one lateral one here in the middle, maybe that one. Maybe actually that one. I don't know. Let's try it. So now at least it has like a bunch of different pieces to work with. They're kind of tricky. This is a very strange object, shape of object. To actually UV map, to UV unwrap. Oh, what is happening? I want all of them. Come on. Unwrap and back. There we go. Alright, so 0.3, come on. Come on, Packmaster, you can do it. Still finding new configurations though. But yeah, the idea is that if we have as few of those lateral seams as possible, then you don't get any, or you get as few sort of light map inconsistencies as possible as well. in as few places as possible. Like the usage here is kind of terrible, if we're being honest, but I think this might still be the way I prefer to do this, especially if we let it run for a little while and it can sort of find more optimal solutions for this. If I throw this onto a 4K texture, it's pretty like reasonable thing for an object that's this big. I don't have very many 4K textures in this level, just due to the fact that my art style is kind of simple and low poly. But this one runs through like half the level, so I think a 4K texture might be justified, and also it would probably need quite a lot of UV space. There's an add-on that I use, UV squares. It will square the islands to a square, but will respect the shape of the model. I think Zen UV does that as well. And I don't want to mess with it now that it's doing its thing here, but let's have a look in a little bit. Because I'm pretty sure that it knows how to do that. And that might actually be... It's a good point that you're having. We're wasting quite a lot of space here because A, these islands are so long, but also they're crooked. So we might just be able to, like, what is it called, like rectify or whatever it's called, the operator there. Still finding new configurations though. Like typically with most objects, it would have stopped finding new ones like quite some time ago. But it doesn't quite look like we're gonna reach the 0.5, so I don't think I can't really be very happy with this. Let's see, Zen UV. Trim sheet, it is not stack. Transform probably. Quadrify, not rectify, but quadrify. So if I quadrify these guys, yeah, you can see there's a little bit of stretching going on. But I think it actually might just make it more sort of consistent in a way, because now we have sort of the texels following the shape of the object there. So now if you take this and now we try to pack it, let's see what happens. Pack it please. Okay, we're already over 0.5, so that's good. But I'd like to get closer to 0.7. All right, 0.53. 0.54. Yeah, this is strange. It finds places for these and then it leaves like a whole corner here. It just like... It clearly has issues with just a bunch of these things like this. There's nothing to put like inside of another or anything like that. It just literally has to just put them next to each other and then reorganize them in a in 100,000 different ways, quite literally. But it's still growing. We're almost at 0.55. Hey, cactus. Yeah, I'm gonna keep doing this for about 20 minutes or so, and then I'm gonna end for today. I'm gonna go have some food with my family. Spend some time not working on this game. I'm sure I'm gonna do a little bit more tonight. But maybe there'll be some streams in the weekend. We'll see. We'll see. Yeah, keeps growing and growing. Good work, Packmaster. I'm just gonna let it run for a little while still. Because it just keeps finding better. Like sometimes you go like, I thought I've seen that already. How can that be better than what you had previously? But I trust it. Can't really do anything else but trust it. And of course the nice thing with this is that if we can do it with just one texture, then we can do it with one material. Which won't necessarily cut down on the draw calls, because we still have different meshes, but it would just make it less stuff to like manage, just have fewer materials. A bit of a random question, but how much are you using Z+ as a standard library in the engine code? Or are you a write your own containers kind of guy? I am using the standard vector with an overloaded allocator. And that is probably one of the main reasons why my debug build of the engine is so slow. Because Visual Studio, like Microsoft's C++ standard library, is notoriously slow in debug mode. Yeah, so I would like to switch it out for something else. I'm not using the stud string class very much. I have my own string type, which does a bunch of things that the normal one doesn't. Such as it's completely based on UTF-8, for example. Stud maps I don't use almost at all. Instead I use the Google Maps dense and sparse hash maps, and I use the SCA maps. Skarupke I think is the guy's name. You can find them on GitHub. They are really nice. Yeah, but I haven't really written like a whole lot of stuff myself. I have written my own string class. I think that's basically it. But yeah, I should probably switch out the vector for some other compatible vector thing at some point, just to make my debug builds faster. because they're really, really slow. We're talking about like 15 frames per second or something, just running the engine, right? Because I manage quite a lot of stuff with vectors. So there's definitely some points. There's definitely some truth to not using the standard library provided by your, compiler or toolchain or whatever platform. It can be a problem for you if you do that. But on the other hand, like in release mode, it tends to be kind of okay. It's not really an issue. It's more, at least with Microsoft's standard template library. So that's pretty much how it is. The Zig code, of course, doesn't suffer from any of this, and in fact, all the builds that you've ever seen on the streams, and probably also my other videos, have always been running a debug configuration of the Zig code. I just typically do that because it is fast enough when you're running with a release engine to run debug Zig gameplay code, and it is significantly faster to compile. Zig is not terribly slow to compile when it comes to compiling code, especially if you're comparing it against C++. But the release configuration is kind of slow, and I as I understand it, it's mostly just because LLVM is slow, the optimizing pass. So I think I might just be completely off here, but I think compiling traction point in debug mode from scratch. Compiling traction point in debug mode from scratch takes around 10 seconds, and compiling it in release mode takes about 45 seconds. And then compiling the engine, core engine, I think takes about 4.5 minutes. And then the plugins, like PhysX5 and D3D and all of those things that you need to have to run the game, the trampoline launcher, they take just a few seconds. I wonder how much swapping the default allocator with an arena would make a difference. With the stud vector. Hi again. Hi. Welcome back. It wouldn't make that much of a difference because the allocation is not the issue. And it was at least with the Microsoft vector standard library, the allocations are not the issue. The issue is that they inject such an enormous amount of assertions into the code, at least that's my understanding, that it makes it slow. And to be clear here, if in case you missed that, I am using a custom allocator with it. Okay, let's just leave that at 0.574. It's not like a usage percentage to be excited about by any means, but it's not terrible. It's not terrible. This is now a 2K map. And so if we make it a 4K map, I think it will do just fine. So I think I'm gonna try that. But yeah, if you look at this, if you're on the Discord, you will have seen this lately. It's my memory stats. memory stats debugger here. So the editor is currently using 5 gigs of memory. And almost a gigabyte of that is just like editor stuff. So editor commands, basically. That's kind of interesting. I think the game... Actually, let's run the game here. You can see the same thing in there in the editor, but it doesn't necessarily tell you, like, the whole story. And we'll take away the sounds again. So, memory stats. We can see the STL, Standard Development Library. That would be all the vectors, all the hash maps, all the queues. I have a few queues there as well. Maybe like the odd, what do you call it? Linked list. That sort of stuff. It is not using. It doesn't contain any strings. The strings are in a different category, as you can see down here. So we have the count, 5,000 of them. That's quite a lot. It's not like using a huge amount of memory. If we're loading the game, you can see the ones that are yellow are the ones that have been used within the last second. Right. So even if you see that you know, an allocator there seems to be sitting at some count, and its allocation, you know, the amount of memory it allocates doesn't go up and down, but it's yellow. That basically just means that, like, you know, every frame there is at least one allocation that is like allocated and freed, or something like that. So you can see that it actually does get used. That's what the yellow thing does there. And you can see that the STL category is, first of all, is the one with the most allocations of all. And it actually allocates and deallocates quite a lot of stuff there. I think after that we have generic, which is just like, that is the thing that, you know, I haven't specified where something needs to go. So everything just goes there. But STL has 72,000, and the generic one has only 22,000. So it's a pretty. I'm using the STL and STL-like containers quite a lot, but it also probably means that the STL types actually just make like a whole bunch of small allocations, because the allocated memory amount is only 105 megs. So the size is not, you know, it's not super large, but the amount of them is pretty large, annoyingly so. And so one could believe that the allocator might be, you know, the problem there, but I don't think it is. I think it's still just like the debug checks that get compiled into the Microsoft stud vector if you actually build it in debug mode. But yeah, you can just see Zig sitting at like just like 7 megs there and not doing anything. That's all of the Zig. I mean, if you've been on Discord, you might have seen this. I wrote about this recently. But like all of the Zig code, both the actual gameplay code and the entire sort of Zig glue code that could be considered to be part of the engine, all of that is 7 megabytes. It's like the fourth from the bottom there, like almost nothing. And if I open the radio menu here, like over and over, you can see that it occasionally does allocate like something because it turns yellow, but there's almost nothing here. But then the STL one, like it never turns white because there's something allocating and deallocating every frame. It's not like a huge amount. I did debug that at some point, and there's like 2 or 3 allocations per frame, just like in the core engine there, that I just haven't bothered to actually fix. So yeah, it's kind of interesting. But it's not necessarily a problem, especially not in release. It would be nicer if I could just debug code more easily. Like actually run the game in debug mode and it would run at a reasonable frame rate. It doesn't do that currently. You can still run it though. It does work, but it's not something that you do by default on the C++ side. On the SIG side I can do that because like the SIG standard library is so nice that doesn't do anything funky that would cause it to be slow. Right, let's have a look here. How does the camera actually now behave with that monorail having collisions there? Is it going to be a problem for us? Is it? Yeah. Kind of works. Certain collision meshes, certain shapes can just be super wonky. Like this has some sort of nooks and crannies, this mesh as well. It looks like the camera handles them pretty well. I think that's fine. It's probably fine. Am I a salmiakki enjoyer? Of course. I mean, who isn't? It goes without saying. Oh yeah, I guess I know what you mean. All the Finnish people love salmiakki. That's not really the case, but yeah, I do, and I do enjoy it. Not all of it, but most of it. Alrighty then, folks. I think this is probably as far as I'm gonna get right now. So I have a somewhat decent UV thing going here. I need to put a basic material on this, probably just like some of that concrete pattern that I've been using all over the place, like these walls here, for example. Like this sort of stuff here can, by the way, that's a light map seam right there. You can sort of see it bleeding a little bit. So you have this annoying seam there. That's why I'm trying to avoid those as much as I can, but not like going out of my way to do it. But probably just like putting this concrete pattern on it, maybe painting a little bit of crap on top of it, and then adding the edge highlights. That should probably give me basically what I need for the track, and then do something interesting with these supports, right? Supports need to look somewhat nice as well. And then I need to see how it does with the light mapping, and then if it doesn't do well, then I will just have to basically re-unwrap it. So that's why I'm not going to put like a whole bunch of effort into this material now. If that makes sense. And after that, then probably modeling and texturing those monorail stations. I kind of want to get this monorail kind of done, at least demo done. And once that is done, I think this house here, next to the wonderful cactus that we made yesterday, is gonna be like the last thing in the level that's not textured. And so I'm gonna have to throw something on that as well, probably. And then we have basically the entire environment. Oh yeah, we have this house here as well. I'm gonna have to do something about that. But yeah, there may be some streams during the week, and we'll see. We'll see. Maybe I get inspired and stream some tomorrow as well if I work on this stuff. Not sure yet what my weekend is gonna look like. Anyway, this stream is all wrapped up. Thanks to everyone for following along once again. Little by little, the demo is coming together. And if you want to play it, then the Discord is the place for you. If you don't want to join the Discord, you still want to play the game, you can do that too, but you're going to have to wait a little while longer for a publicly available demo. Which also might be the build for you if you want a more polished one, because this will be very rough. Alright, it's a little sad to end this here now that we've gotten a proper audience after a couple of hours, but can't be helped. I'm gonna go get some food, make some food even. Have a great weekend. Maybe I'll see some of you during the weekend still. Take care.